Ready to go, people?
Yeah,
How are you, sir?
excellent.
Dwight, great to have you here.
Thanks.
We are going to kick off the session as we normally do it. We are going to have a 1-minute pitch today. We're going to go through that process, and what we're going to do is Christine will be taking the time to give some feedback on this, and from that journey, I will dissect it. We'll talk a little bit about your company, and also see if we can, if you'd like, how I would pitch back, if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Does that work?
absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's get started. I know, Christine, usually we have like a studio-based elevator environment. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to keep it a little bit more back to basics, okay? But it's going to be fun regardless. What we'll do, Dwight, just so everyone else knows, where are you calling from, sir?
I'm in Summerville, Charleston, South Carolina.
All right, we're going to start off in beautiful South Carolina, which I guess is still nice and warm, and everyone's starting to get jealous of warmer places to live, right? Let's kick off the session, and let's get going. Are you ready, sir?
Sure. You want a 1-minute elevator pitch?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself as an investor, okay?
Okay.
And then we'll start the 1-minute pitch, okay?
Where are you located today?
I am currently in Singapore, right? So sometimes in Toronto, or it's 10:42 p.m. here in Singapore. So a little bit of a time difference, but that's the beauty of being global. And really excited. I was just, did a little bit of EMBA teaching here in Singapore. We had some of our INSEAD, Wharton, and MIT students here. We're doing some entrepreneurial teaching here, so good to be back. And I'm actually married to a Singaporean, so I get to meet up with my in-laws and all the holiday stuff. But most importantly, the most fun I have is pitch time right now. So I'm going to introduce myself as an investor, if that's okay with you, and let's get started, sir. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Good morning. My name is Singh. I am actually a former, very successful medical doctor who is looking in the health tech space, and I heard about what you're working on, so I wanted to find out more. Tell me more. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I would ask you, sir, have you heard of resistant bacteria and viruses and fungus that are resistant to being killed by current crop of antibiotics?
Yes, I'm loosely familiar with it, but go ahead.
Yeah. So we have patents on technology combining two basic ingredients, chitozan, which you also know as poly-D-glucosamine, which people take for their joint health, and silver. And we've been able to create an antimicrobial by combining these two ingredients in a very unique and patented way that makes it more efficacious and less toxic to the environment and humans. And we've been able to incorporate this technology as liquids and powders into other products to make them more efficacious and safer to use in a healthcare environment and in the food supply, in order to be able to reduce the spread of these diseases and these bacteria that can infect the food supply. And we've been collaborating with some major research universities and private companies to develop products and bring those products to market.
Okay, excellent. Dwight, how can I help you? Where do you need help?
Well, right now we're looking to make some connections at the C level with companies who would license both technologies, our textile finish, as well as these new coatings. And I'll just focus on the coatings for a minute so you'll understand the market we're going after. Sure. Packaging can contribute to the contamination of the food supply from field to table. if the packaging doesn't harbor bacteria or actually actively kills the bacteria that can infect the food supply, then you'll make the food chain safer and reduce the risk of infection or the need to kill a lot of chickens because they've now got some new type of salmonella infecting the production facility. So our technology is non-toxic. We've had numerous studies done, and they've all passed as a category 4 according to the EPA. So we're looking to make those kind of connections.
Got it. Got it. And so these are people that could license the technology, implement it as any part of their distribution supply chain and so on and so forth. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So our goal as a company is to manufacture the basic ingredients and then work with these companies to develop products that they can clear the regulatory hurdles on for their specific need and their specific customer base and market those customers with this new material.
Got it. Got it. Understood.
And at some point, once we've cleared regulatory approval, we could use some mentoring or connections in determining whether or not we are to go and build our own manufacturing or assemble our own manufacturing plant to make these products, or to outsource them to a toll manufacturer.
Got it. All right. Noted. Noted. Okay. Thank you for your elevator pitch, Dwight. I appreciate that. Let's dissect this a little bit. People in the chat, right? We just heard Dwight's pitch. Okay. Now, Dwight, one of the things that we like to be able to do is make sure that every pitch can, it can click with as wide of an audience as possible, right? We find that that's probably a better way to kind of approach and then kind of dig a little bit deeper on the more nitty-gritty components on things after the curiosity has been sparked and they can, do a little bit of research. Because sometimes when you meet some people, they might need to do a little bit of research so they don't look stupid. You know what I mean? Because what you're working on seems really interesting, right? And so I wanted to kind of drill a little bit deeper on this, right? I want to get some of the feedback point. And Christine, if we want to have any of the mentors that would like to join and give some feedback, it's always good to do it. But I felt like I wanted to kind of map the story arc a little bit better, right? Or simplify the story arc, if I may, right?
Yeah.
And get to the point where, because what I felt was, it seems to me that you've uncovered a very unique process, okay? And I wanted to elevate that and kind of understand the story around how this was discovered. You did talk about you've got patents on combining two processes, and there was a couple of I want to dig a little bit deeper on that first, right? Because I feel like there's something really powerful there that needs to come out, because it needs to, the way I like to describe it is like, I kind of want to know about all of the lava in the volcano, okay, right? Okay. And the lava and all the amazing, the heat and energy and all the other things. And then as part of your journey is like, okay, if we can ignite the volcano and the volcano erupts, suddenly there's a big vision around where the use cases and where the implications around this, Dwight, come in, Yeah. And that's what I was yearning for. That's what I wanted to hear with what you were doing, Okay. And the other thing is Dwight, and everyone else will see this, I'm not biased to the business. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just hearing it for the first time, and it's a mode in time, right? And so you might have pitched this hundreds of times, and it might work really, really well with a specific audience. For me, I want to make sure that pretty much anyone gets it. It could be, you know what I mean? Somebody that might be working on behalf of somebody with money or access, And if we don't dumb it down enough, sometimes we miss opportunities, And so I want to come back to this. Let's talk first about the two elements to this. Let's dig a little bit deeper on that, right? Because you talked about the combination of two elements, right? One was around joint health, and I was trying to unpack that, and then you brought the second component in, and then you shifted. So I needed a little bit more time to unpack those components. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's unpack that a little bit more. Go ahead, sir.
Very few people know what Chitozan is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's new to most everyone we talk to or have pitched.
Yes. Okay.
But they know what glucosamine is.
Okay.
And so if I phrase it as glucosamine and you went to do a Google search, you'd find things that would come up related to fat loss and joint health, neither of which we're pursuing.
Okay.
So we want to focus on Chitozan and chitin technology because the products that we're licensing for the bioplastic coatings and that we use in the textile finish are made with Chitozan. And that market has been around for a very long time, and most all the companies that have a decent sized lab that we speak with or are in talks to partner with have looked at Chitozan at one point or another. But the market for it changed when a company went into business 5 years ago in Washington State and can now, in volume, produce massive amounts of Chitozan flake at a cost 200% or to 100% lower than anyone else on the planet. And the quality of their Chitozan is extremely high and comparable to any other Chitozan produced. So Chitozan is the second most abundant polymer in nature, only behind cellulose, which you get from trees and plants. And it's an amazing polymer because it's the only one that's got a cationic or a positive charge.
Okay.
What our technology does when it's combined in this unique fashion with the silver is we're able to use significantly less silver, in fact, a fraction of the amount of silver, to kill the bacteria, viruses, and fungus that are evolving and emerging as health threats to human, animal, and environment populations. Makes the use of silver much safer and also lower cost for this type of technology. Understand, in the last decade, the amount of money going to investigate and develop new antimicrobials as well as new antibiotics has declined by 75%, according to industry sources. They're not pursuing it for a couple of reasons. And as a result, everyone now all of a sudden is scrambling for some new technology or some new applications that they can use because there hasn't been the investment put behind it for nearly a decade.
Yeah.
And Chitozan itself is antimicrobial. It has two key properties. It's sticky and it's like a magnet for bacteria. So when the bacteria is around, it gets attracted to the Chitozan and it attaches to the Chitozan adjacent to where the silver is located. And the silver is able to inactivate or eradicate the pathogens rapidly. That's what makes our technology different than other silver coatings that radiate ions or release silver into the environment that goes out to the bacteria. So it's sort of a reverse of the process. And we have perfected, we think, this material by opening our own lab and hiring the top silver coating expert for Kodak out of retirement. He came and he has optimized the amount of silver and silver particle size that we're using in this formula, and we're achieving log reductions in bacteria close to zero.
Okay, so Dwight,
this new formula is much better than the one that we had been successful with so far.
So Chitozan, and the second component that you talked about in the original pitch, you said you're kind of working with two components. There was the Chitozan. What was the second component?
Silver.
Silver. Got it. Okay, that's what I had written down. Again, there's a lot to unpack there, Dwight. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if they want to go into so much detail from an elevator pitch perspective, right? So
here's the story on how this was invented, and it's a fascinating story.
Okay.
My partners that live in the UK, and they were in the water treatment business.
Sure.
And they had clients who were the mills, the textile mills in the UK.
Yeah.
And they were tasked with removing the colors, the dyes from the wastewater. And Chitozan will bond to those colors and dyes and flock them out or cause them to precipitate out where the sludge can be recycled or disposed of properly.
Yeah.
And when this was going on, there was a bacterial outbreak. They were very, very difficult time treating the normal chemicals they were using at the time. So they found a way to get silver to stick to the chitosan. So when they were treating the wastewater, not only did it remove the colors, it killed the bacteria.
Yeah.
And that's how this got started. They were able to patent this process that uses ultraviolet light to process the silver onto the chitosan at the place exactly where the bacteria is attracted to.
Got it. Now, let me ask a question, Dwight. Another point around this was use cases. Let's talk a little bit about money on this, right? Like you did briefly talk about, let's talk about the different use cases. Like, where do you see, I mean, you've uncovered, you know, I guess by way of you know, a couple of smart people observing some process and being able to patent this process now. Tell me about the use cases. Tell me about the use cases.
So we got involved. There are many things we can do with this, from hand sanitizers that don't flame like alcohol hand sanitizers, and benzalkonium chloride, which is also highly toxic in concentrated forms. We can make a hand sanitizer. We are focused, though, on two areas right now. Number one is a textile finish. We received a National Institutes of Health NIAID grant to optimize the manufacturing and the particle size of the silver so that we go back to the EPA. We should be able to clear the EPA with the easier path with a textile finish that will inactivate bacteria and viruses and fungus on contact and sustain that efficacy over many, many washings, because our material is shown to not leach out or wash out of these products like curtains and drapes. The Infection Prevention Control Association in the United States and in UK did some long-term studies in healthcare facilities, hospitals, care homes, and found that once drapes were hung in a room, after 14 days, over 90% of them were covered with transmissible MRSA. So let's say that a nurse comes in and pulls that drape, she'll have it on her hand if she's not gloved. And even if it does, it gets on the glove. It doesn't kill it because the glove's not antimicrobial.
So Dwight, I want to talk about that, if I may, okay? Because I think
we can carve that one off. It's separate. Because bioplastics is getting so much traction right now. I could spend the same amount of time talking about it as well.
But I like, let's talk about, because my question is, you know, the use case, and this is the first one you came up with. Okay. Now we could probably find a lot of different use cases, but you know, when I think about how I would you know, again, and these are just ideas, Dwight, just to kind of
please go ahead.
How I would look at it is, you know, coming back to the problem statement itself, because I know that obviously we only have a minute to kind of get this. And when we're talking to people, you know, you're at a trade show, for instance, right? Just to visualize yourself at a trade show and you're talking to so many different people. The question is if I'm going to pitch this to 100 people, how am I going to make sure I get kind of the best response? And for me, as you're talking, you know, I would like to lead with the use case around this, right? And so when we think about the fact that you've uncovered, okay, you know, using the second most abundant polymer on the planet, a way of keeping textile materials cleaner longer. Is that what's happening, Dwight?
Well, it's not a cleaner, but the textiles will remain antimicrobial over a long period of time. What they discovered in this assessment was that hospitals don't change curtains that often because they're kind of difficult to take down. So they do get this transmissible material going through the air ducts and in the hospital rooms. You know, the hospital's the last place you want to go if you don't want to get an infection. So we're able to kill the superbugs.
But when I see antimicrobial, and you're more of an expert, like if I have this on my own clothes, don't things start to smell when microbes start to hang out? Like, is that what happens?
Yeah, so the garment business is a potential for us as well. This is anti-odor. And in fact, yesterday we were talking with our research partner at the University of Georgia textile department, and they're putting together a protocol to do the odor study.
But does that make sense, Dwight? Like, again, it's just something that, when I think about what you're doing, for me, it's like, if you're able to do this, how does the world of materials change, whether it's the drapes or the clothes that you wear, right? If you're able to have something that resists antimicrobial, like the bacterias, right? You know what I mean? Like, and I like to use easier words to say, like, so I know there's a couple of scientific words that you've used, but for me, I'm trying to, as I'm listening to you and unpacking it, it's like, okay, the curtains in my house, the bed sheets, the clothes that I'm wearing, the cloth in my car, all of these elements, you have all these use cases, and suddenly it's a bit of a game changer, because whether it's odor or just any other bacteria that's, it's going to take a longer time to accumulate. Does that make sense? And I'm thinking about my life as a university student, right? It'd mean that I have to wash my clothes a lot less. Do you know what I mean? And if I have a body odor, right? You know what I mean? Like, I'll be able to. Does that make sense, Dwight?
It does, and we've wrestled with that same question. We had a potential customer come to us in 2019 with a very unique product for women, and we had it tested, and it worked beautifully on spandex. But they went with a company that was more established. Even though the interesting thing that we need to research is that chitosan is also very skin friendly, so it's used in wound dressings.
Sure. And I mean, we're going to help you tackle the idea of, customers going to somebody that's bigger or more reputable. That's no problem. But I want to come back to kind of the use cases, because as I'm looking at this, again,
let me share a screen with you.
We're doing elevator pitches today, so we're going to resist. We're going to resist that, because I do want to see your screen. I personally do.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I need to. I want to see it right after our session, because you've got me thinking on a lot of things, right?
Wherever bad bacteria exists, we can kill it. We had some news yesterday morning at 5 a.m. that researchers associated with the International Antimicrobial Research Group down in Australia are finally, after 2 years, going to get around to testing our material against the resistant silver bacteria that they've uncovered. They believe it'll work because of the unique way that this combination of ingredients blocks in the silver, and we just found that out yesterday morning.
but Dwight, if I may, because I would like to pitch your idea to you, but I want to just ask a couple of more questions, if I may, just to kind of, I want to make sure I get this, because when I think about this, I think about textiles, whether it's your clothes or your drapes, but even the plastics that we're using to transport food, right? You know what I mean? Like, that was the earlier component, right? So I'm thinking about like a bag of fruit, right? For instance, right? Yeah. And microbes get on the fruit, and that's what causes fruit to decompose and go, food to go bad.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? And
so there's an interesting angle to the coatings that's very important. You have to have an oxygen and moisture barrier level to these packaging films. Sure. And the coatings that were developed that we've optioned from Georgia Tech have barrier properties equivalent to currently used coating technology like PET and PVC. And so these incorporate our chitosan silver, but there's one that doesn't. And it also is a very, very strong product. And I've got material going out, to 3 companies in the next couple of days. Sure. To run trials in their lab.
But Dwight, if I may, I just wanted to complete my thought, if I may. So coming back to I got the textile example, and I can simplify it and and pitch it to somebody in grade 5, and they would get it, right? My question is around plastics and food and all that stuff, right? Help me visualize the use case, right? Because what I want to be able to understand, and I just got to make sure I'm saying the right thing and representing you correctly, is that when it comes things to like food transport, because you have this antimicrobial layer and you've kind of got the chitozan and silver, patent going, and you're able to create a resistance kind of force field. The way I look at it, it's like this force field, right? That we have. I'm visualizing when I used to watch cartoons when I was young, there's this force field around it. And so smelly bacteria and microbials that are going to help food rot, or your clothes smell, or do you know what I mean? You are
I'm starting to get it now.
Dwight, do you get what I'm saying?
I'm starting to get it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Here's your shield.
Okay, so tell me what's in your hand, sir. What is that?
This is a piece of treated plastic packaging film. It's coated with PET. This was around a tea bag.
Okay, and so
kept the tea fresh. This won't break down for 200 years.
Okay, all right.
Now you can take our stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a big sheet of it.
Sure.
And it'll be gone. Actually, here's a small sample of what that might look like.
Sure.
It breaks down in soil in under 90 days to 95%.
Okay, but that's a different component, and I like that, right? And the idea of being biodegradable. I understand that. I want to come back to the actual use case, right? So, when we think about stuff that goes bad, right? So I'll tell you what I'm guilty of, Dwight, right? Like every Saturday or Sunday, I wake up and I go grocery shopping, and I'm like, I'm going to eat healthy all week. I'm going to buy a bag of spinach. Okay. And if you ever speak to my wife, she'll tell you Ash loves to throw out spinach. Okay. Do you know what I mean? Because I buy it and I don't make my smoothies. I don't know if anyone else is guilty of this.
You and me too, brother.
So
I
Dwight,
do that.
my question to you is, using your plastic, and I'm assuming that it helps, prevent some of the, maybe not all, but some of them, to keep food fresher. Is that correct? Does it help in that component? Is that part of the value proposition around what you've built with the technology?
It will keep food as fresh as current coatings will.
Okay.
But it will decompose more rapidly in soil.
Okay, got it.
And the ocean. It'll break down in salt water over time.
Got it. So that's the value prop around it. It's cleaner, right? So this idea of plastics, right? It's gone in 90 days versus 10 years type thing. Is that correct?
Right. And we're not using food grains to make it, and we're not using oil and gas to produce it.
Got it. Let me ask you a question. How big is the industry? Like, tell me a little bit about this. When we think
the thin plastic packaging film industry, just the components of its global sales are in the couple $2 billion a year range.
Got it.
We have had a difficult time separating out how much of that is these synthetic coatings, the PVC, PET, but it's huge.
Yeah. Dwight, are you raising capital, or are you just looking for introductions for commercial purposes?
Right now, our investors are our private family office, and they've indicated that they will raise whatever funds are necessary whenever we need to. But I explained to them that it's not just the funding that we would like to bring in. We would like to bring in people with connections and contacts. So for the Series A round that we may do later this year, when we get regulatory approval, we would probably be raising money from potential partners who would invest in the company and bring products to market, because 3 of the companies we're in talks with have an investment arm.
Sure, I understand.
But I'm more interested in the connections that we can make at the C-suite level with certain companies that are our potential partners.
Sure, absolutely. Dwight, who would buy your company?
Well, that's a great question, because if you look at everything that we do, there's just a few companies that I think are ideal fits. I think Bayer is
3M.
one.
3M?
3M is on that list of 6, yeah.
Okay.
But there are some smaller companies also.
Sure.
Because once we use these products to get into production and start generating revenue, there are several other products that we want to go get regulatory approval on
Of course.
that
And you
are
can
superior to what we're
imagine.
doing now. We have a semi-permanent spray for all of those surfaces that are plexiglass or polycarbonate.
Yeah. Got it.
It's a 6-month antimicrobial spray.
Yes, antimicrobial spray.
It's,
Antimicrobial. I like that
or
word.
antipathogenic, as the Autoliv people in Sweden called it.
So my feedback, I always try to keep what I'm going to do is this. Dwight, would you like me to pitch this idea back to you?
Sure.
The way I've interpreted it now. Keep in mind, sir, that I am not a scientist, right?
Neither am I.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to dumb some of these components down so that an average investor would understand it, right? So for instance, I'm in Singapore right now, and I'm actually drove by the 3M Asia headquarters, okay? And I happen to know some people there, and I'm thinking about them. They would probably understand almost everything that you said, Dwight, okay? Right? Yeah. But I don't know if every family office or every investor might want to know. And I want to just kind of zero in on the industries that we're thinking about and how you're creating a revolutionary product, right? And I want to see how we can angle that. Okay. Is that okay with you, sir? Should I pitch it back to you as I'm listening to it? I'm going to simplify and see how we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Absolutely.
But you have to become the person I'm pitching to, sir. So we're kind of switching gears now. I get to be the CEO of Chitozan Health, right? So just for 2 minutes, and I'll give it back to you. And but you have to introduce yourself, and let's see where this goes. So go ahead, you can introduce yourself, and then I'll start talking. I'll give you my pitch.
Hi, Ash. My name is Jim Wiley, and I'm interested in learning about your technology.
Thank you, Jim. It's my pleasure. My name is Ash Singh, and I'm part of the Chitozan Health team. It's very interesting. I want to share with you a patented chemical composition that me and my team stumbled on. We actually have a team of very skilled scientists that have come together, and we've taken the second most popular polymer on the planet, chitozan, and been able to create a very interesting chemical composition with silver that's allowed us to create something really, really powerful. And through this process, without going into so many details right now, we are in the position where we can have an antimicrobial film that can impact the clothes that we wear, right? Thinking about odors and all those components, curtains in textiles anywhere, even the plastic film where we ship food. We think about that as a $5-10 billion industry. The idea of creating the same type of film that's biodegradable in as little as 100 days. And so we've put this together. We have the patents. We are now looking to drive some business development activity to map out the use cases and enter the markets. And I want to spend some time with you as an expert in the industry to figure out which is our beachhead market and how we can use this revolutionary technology to change the way we wear clothes, change the way as humans we interact with textiles and how we keep it clean, and more importantly, keep our food cleaner and healthier, and obviously remove the plastic waste that is populating our oceans. I'd love to go through the patent and the stuff that we've put together and show you the different use cases, and hope that we can find a way to collaborate together. Thank you.
I love it.
Huh?
I love that approach. I really like that approach. That is completely different than what we've been doing. Not completely, but it's very,
yeah,
very different than what we've been doing.
you know, when I look at it, right, and Dwight, I didn't do anything different actually. I was just
No,
listening to
it's complicated to explain, and you
yeah,
really
it
made
is.
that. I get it.
Yeah. Like you are, when I look at what you're doing, you've stumbled upon, and it's cool. It's always nice to stumble upon. Who doesn't want to be part of a, hey, I stumbled upon story, right? And I didn't
Yeah,
go into too much of the depth around it. But what I wanted it to be able to do is like with Chitozan Health, you can revolutionize, right? Different industries. Does that make sense? One after the other, one after the other, one after the other.
yeah,
And once that's clear to the person that you have discovered something that can be applied in different ways, and suddenly, you know, you kill the deodorant industry, okay, right? You kill the fabric. You know, there's industry stuff. You know, when we think about you know, that component, and you think about all of the food that's moving around. There's all these components, and suddenly, it just makes obvious sense that 3M needs to buy your business. Okay. That's the other thing. It's just obvious, right? Because when you map it out like that, how does Bayer and 3M work? They uncover some sort of technology and they milk the hell out of it, right? You know what I mean? You know, if you think about 3M and sticky notes and all the other things that they do, right? You know, what do? They figured out something around stickiness and they apply it to tape, and then they apply it to sticky notes, and they do all these other things, and they become a, you know, it's the same thing with you. You got these use cases, and it's obvious. And part of a pitch is around the fact that you have a very clever team of hackers, right? The scientists, that group, that's what you're good at. But what you want to be able to do now is get into hustle mode. You need to find the use cases and the connection points, but you also need to be able to make sure that those connections are going to help you exploit it, right? And exploiting is not just getting the relationships, but it's about making your product as usable as possible.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of the way I see it. And so every single, you have, like, I'm sure with a little bit more time, we could go from industry to industry to industry, and break that down, right? I could have probably, I'm sure with a little bit more time, I could have talked about 10 different industries with what you built, right?
Yeah,
you know?
at least 5.
But we need to also remember, in startup world, we have to prioritize accurately and act according to our priorities, right? Yeah. And so one of the things around this, Dwight, is we should probably figure out, and we'll do this through the Hyper Accelerator, to just zero in maybe 1, 2, max 3 different opportunities as you start to open this up, because you might not have the resources to try to go through too many markets, and you know what I mean? Business development takes time. You know, we know that cycle time, you know, to get these partners on board and to try it and to test it and prove it, and that all of the other FDA, maybe there's other stuff that you have to look at, and takes time. But that's kind of what I wanted from you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
Industry breaker, boom, 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 boom. And it's just like, wow, this guy's going to do this, then he's going to do this. And then, you know what? Somebody's going to have to buy him, because it just, you know what I mean? These guys are going to need what he needs, what he's done, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what I see in you, right, Dwight? That's when I hear you talking, that's what I think you need to share with the universe, right? Because that's what they need to know.
But do it in a fun, sort of relatable way, which is what you did.
Well, I appreciate that, but again, I just rejigged what you said. That's all I did. I am, you know what I mean? I am going to research Chitozan a little bit more, and I have since I first met you. But I need to kind of connect the silver component, so there's a little bit more, you know, a little bit more. But for me, it's fun, it's relatable, but more importantly, it's like, wow, I've stumbled upon something, and this kind of patented process is just going to be a game changer after game changer after game changer, and it's just going to be the reality, right? And that's what I want for you. I want the universe to know that that's going to happen, and you happen to be the guy who just stumbled upon it, and good for you.
Yeah.
You know,
one investor called it a foundational technology. Another one called it a core technology with multiple applications.
Absolutely.
Because when you begin to look at where bacteria exists,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
you want to have this there.
Yes, absolutely, Dwight. And that's what we need to do. So I know people have told that to you, and what I tried to do today was pitch it to you. Does that make sense?
In a fun and relatable way, which is
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much. It's always my pleasure. And you know what, like, this process, what I would encourage you to do is I'll send you a recording of this, and let's try to continue the process, right, Dwight? Let's try and, because we need to now make sure Dwight, right now you're back to CEO, by the way. So I quit as your CEO. So I was your CEO for 2 minutes, and now I've moved on because I got to be a CEO of 6 other companies today.
But thanks.
But let's get the sound bites. Let's figure those components out. And it's important for you to have that mastery of this and just connect the dots. And you are just as relatable as I am. It's just the way I was listening to you, and I just jigged a couple of things, but I'm glad that you found value in it. And look forward to the next steps with the Hyper Accelerator, Dwight. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ash. I really loved it.